Hi, welcome. In this video, this is part two of my breakdown series responding to David at Miracle K-9, who, doesn't pull any punches, okay, so to speak, when it comes to this controversy happening in the dog training world by way of the International Association of Canine Professionals. And again, this is kind of rare because this is what I say. You don't hear many of these balanced dog trainings actually confronting, okay, the problems. So here, this podcast is unique in the sense that you're hearing David actually going through and saying, calling it for what it is. So let's play some more of this as I respond to it.
And it's just funny because okay, so Dylan, when he first started coming on the scene, he always talked about Larry was like one of his idols when he first started getting into training, and they were buddies, and Larry and him did like a 4-hour podcast together and talk about him all the time and stuff. And then Larry excommunicated him from his circle. Like Larry made some big post talking about how he and this is also funny that people say this. He made a big post about how he unfollowed Dylan.
So this is funny because, like I said, a lot of this stuff is new to me. Okay, I mean, there's what you know and there's what you don't, and just how this all layers up. I mean, so like I said, when I'm talking about some of these controversies, I'm kind of hitting the main points, but it's like the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so much infighting and going on and trash talking in the dog training community. I'd have to hire a full-time, 4 full-time people just to cover a certain amount of what's going on a daily basis. I mean, it's so ridiculous. All these social media posts back and forth, all this slander and infighting. It's unbelievable.
Oh, geez. On fucking Facebook, right? Yeah. Because though he gets his message and this and that, he just can't support and stand behind the things that he says and blah, blah, blah. And Larry is the only fucking person that Dylan if somebody challenges, and I don't think this is good, right? I don't think this is a good trait, but if somebody challenges him and says hey, what you're doing is shitty, or we don't like what you're doing, dude, he goes off.
And he tries to. And now here's the thing, it's this recent, okay, this is another video. And again, I just did I just kind of put it in the spotlight briefly of Dylan as a trainer, giving advice to another dog owners, this dog owner with the German Shepherd, his dog is just yelping. And, you can see where, the using the remote collar, okay, it's causing his dog to yelp. And, and then popping it with the correction, right? These dogs wearing a prong collar, yelping again. And it's just and so this has triggered off more controversy. So even while he's trying to call out the president of this Balanced Dog Trainer Association for how the president used a remote collar in a way that made this dog urinate. Okay, I showed that. I talked about that as well. But the hypocrisy of Dylan, right, with this dog yelping, okay, it's unbelievable, but totally makes sense to me the way, again, these trainers, in terms of their process. I talk about lack of clarity for the dog. I talk about this whole role of punishment, and based again on bringing it into a superficial process. Of course, you're going to get problems. It's going to put stress on the dog. You're going to have these reactions. It's a mess.
He kind of makes them a target and basically highlights all of the hypocrisy of what that person is doing, which is what happened with Robert Cabral and Gia and Denise and all these other fucking people. K-9 Optima or whatever the fuck, who's a big TikTok guy. These dudes, right?
I mean, pork junk.
Yeah. But Larry's the only one where every time Larry says something about Dylan and talking about how he doesn't support something he's doing, he's well, Larry, he's he's just trying to whatever, he's, okay. I get, I get what he's doing, and I don't agree with it, but I get what he's doing. You can tell he doesn't want to I feel like that's the only one he's like a little like, hurt maybe by the fact that like Larry kind of excommunicated him a little bit. I could be reading into it. Who knows? I'm just, this is another just tea episode, right? I'm just spitting some tea. I'm just teeing.
Teeing up.
So coincidentally, after all this shit goes on with Dylan, and everybody on the IACP is making individual posts, none of them actually naming him, right? Yeah. But saying how like Dylan is like tearing the community apart and he's the reason why all this is happening and like blah, 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 and this and that.
Here's the thing, the community is tearing itself apart, okay? And Dylan, in his own hypocrisy, is tearing himself apart too. Okay, understand, you talk about this whole thing with training without conflict, this play-based idea of things. I talk about that. I talk about, the core ingredients, in terms of a specific process. I talk about appearances, but I talk about all the controversy, you understand that these controversies are no accidents or just coincidences. You have trainers out there like Kevin Murdoch, anti-dog trainer, calls himself the anti-dog trainer guy because I guess he wants to try to, highlight that he's special somehow, but there's nothing special about what's happening here. Okay, it's all predictable. You have these individuals that are, trying to, say that they're different, and they're not. But it's a bad scene. The bottom line.
And then they bring Larry on as the person that's like gonna do this speech on keeping the community together because what? Like, are we not supposed to read between the lines and like understand that like Larry is also implying Dylan is like spreading the industry apart and like creating all these problems in it and stuff, right? Yeesh. So that's going on, right? And then simultaneously, they recently, I don't know when, maybe 6 months ago, maybe less than that, maybe more than that, appointed this new dude, I think he's the head of the IACP or the president or something like that. Mm-hmm. I forgot what the dude's name even is. Oh, he's a fucking piece of work, though.
Oh, going back again, I mentioned about the anti-dog trainer. Talking about saying, well, just the controversies don't mean anything. Just ignore them. Like, it's so ridiculous. Ignore them. I mean, they're what, they're the clues, right? They're the opportunities to dial into what the real problem is. So, but you get these trainers who, and that's what's happening. This is so hardwired into these trainers who are just superficially focused that they can't step back. They can't apply critical thinking. They're not willing to ask questions, which is going to bring them into a trade-off situation that they're not going to go. So they're in a trap. Understand that they're all in a trap of their own making as individuals, and there's no way out. So, people can try to say, ignore the controversy, but you can't ignore them. You're going to ignore them for so long. Okay, this has been on a slow boil since the beginning, and you're seeing it get worse and worse and worse because once you understand the whole kind of ideological piece of this, you see ultimately the force-free movement has the ideological high ground based on what this ideology represents. So for those who identify as balanced dog trainers who are trying to bring in, punishment, a negative into this superficial idea based on choices, and I talk about free will, okay, they're in a catch-22 situation. They're going to be challenged at all levels on that, and they are. So you see these dogs yelping and see all these type of reactions coming from these dogs. It's just adding fuel to the fire that's already going. Okay, so eventually this all blows up. And you've seen it blowing up now. Like, this is a kind of a major controversy here with this association. They have a ton of members. And you can imagine showing up there's a conference coming up. And, and the president of the association being put in the spotlight, by Larry Crone, who's going to standing behind Dylan, who's calling out the president. And Larry Crone is going as a speaker now to talk about making peace or how to make, that doesn't even make sense. That's a contradiction in itself. So it's so ridiculous. This is This is just a ridiculous scene.
How so?
What's this guy's name? Oh, I'll explain.
I'll explain.
Oh, God, I wish I knew what this dude's fucking name was. He's Antonio Diaz. Yeah, the IACP director of whatever the fuck, right? This fucking dude right here.
Oh, boy.
Right? So this dude went stupid viral on TikTok because he's just this, like, whatever, like, handsome, well-spoken fucking dog trainer that makes good TikTok videos. I mean, really, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and he's not a good trainer, dude. Like, you go watch his videos. He's not a good trainer.
Okay.
Right? Like, he's just, like, doing, like, what, like, fucking Tom Davis and these guys does, taking clips of the sessions. He's doing, like, one-off sessions with people where he just, like, gets a dramatic clip and then fucking posts it and it goes viral and this and that. Yeah. But like I said, he's, like, super well-spoken and, like, people like him because of that. So this dude is now fucking going and he is now posting personal videos from the IACP fucking Facebook page, right? So he made this video like a week ago, right?
Okay.
And it's him just sitting in his chair like, so I want to talk about using punishment, and I want to talk about how to do it and how not to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And he used this video of this trainer up in Canada, right?
Yeah.
That made a video of him like high e-collar stimming this dog for going after another dog. Like he lit this dog up.
Yeah.
Right? Was it over the top? I don't know. I don't know the context of it. Like, I think but it blew up. It went viral. Everybody's talking about how he's an abusive piece of shit. And like, do I think he should have posted it? Fuck no. Yeah. Right? But like, act like every single one of these e-collar trainers hasn't lit a dog up for fucking going after another dog before. Right? Or something agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about the whole using that remote collar as a main pivot point. The problem with that, I talk about the right foundation in terms of clarity to the dog. Everything extends off of that. See, that's the problem. It's just type of drive-through mentality. Trainers, because it's superficial anyway. So it's just like, I'm just going to put this collar on the dog and light this dog up. I mean, it's ridiculous. But see, that's the fallout. And then this is on top of a process that's superficial. It's about, choices, free will, engaging the way I talk about is a problem. And then you try to bring these devices in. These reactions are happening on these dogs because, the clarity isn't there for the dog. It's not being reconciled. The influence isn't being reconciled by way of a process properly. It's not dialed in. Talk about the dog's state of mind, the proactive theme in terms of intercepting an express state versus changing the dog's focus. Getting all that. But so you have all that is just fuel to the fire. Okay, it's all these controversies that you're seeing right now.
Just like that, where it's like a big safety issue. Like every one of these fucking guys that was talking shit, act like you've never in your life ever fucking done that before. Right? We all know that you all have done it before because sometimes if a dog is trying to fuck up another dog, you have to stop it. You have to stop it firmly and you have to send that message to make sure it doesn't happen again. Right? That's just the reality of the situation.
100%. Yeah.
And that's why they're putting these dogs in situations like this whole off leash. You even see David doing that, with, before establishing the right foundation in terms of, of a interaction based method that's going to create that alignment through the owner first before you start to get into introducing other dogs that way. So it just sets up that scenario. So you understand there's a sequence that you go through that you should be going through to avoid these problems.
Yeah.
But because all of these fucking trainers out here in the fucking current climate of dog training are so like principled and like we're so good and better and we do everything nice and that's not how you should use e-collars and blah, 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 right?
So the niceness thing, understand this just gets into this whole thing about appearances, bribery, accommodation, negotiation. So, so that's being exploited by these trainers who, like Zach George, certain trainers who are playing off of appearances, these type of relationship dynamics at the expense of dogs and owners. So change isn't happening anyway. So they're like saying, well, I can do it this way. You aren't going to have these reactions with the dogs. Yeah, sure. But you're not going to have change happening either. Okay. Dogs still end up being destroyed. And then people get blindsided. Someone gets hurt. See, that's the thing, it's that permissive type of a interplay. See, that's the problem. So understand, people are exploiting things all over the place. Try to market their own agenda.
Right? And we avoid problems and never solve things. They crucified this dude for it.
Yeah.
Crucified him, dude. Like, it was crazy. It was like same shit that happened to me. Like, they had like the APL like went to the guy's house to like started like an investigation.
So he said the same thing that happened to him. He's alluding to the whole bonker thing, okay, that happened with David and Miracle K-9. Like I said, I was on here. You can go watch it. I went through all the controversies, just pointing them out, say these are not just some random thing. Okay, these are all pointing towards what I'm saying. There's an opportunity to ask questions. These trains just write it off. Just like the anti-dog train just put out a video saying they don't mean anything. It's so ridiculous. They don't mean anything. Just move along. There's nothing to see here. You know, it's so ridiculous. It's this type of a superficial type of, this is hardwired in. They're just totally, that's that's their blind spot. It really is for these trainers. And then, the very controversy I talked about on the podcast, and months later, he's caught up in it. I mean, imagine that. It's just so ironic, but sad at the same time.
Into him and stuff. And luckily the APL showed up and met the dog and everything was good and he didn't get in any trouble for it, But like this dude got absolutely crucified for it. And like nobody stood up for him. Nobody stood up for him. Right? Like it was like, everybody was like, oh yeah, like I wouldn't do it that way. But like people that were okay with it just stayed silent and didn't say anything. And people that weren't okay with it acted like they were just so much better than him, right? And posted it. And this is somebody that also, if you go on his page, I don't know him personally, but all the people I know up in Toronto know this guy.
Okay. Like I said, I talk about this whole thing about, friendship, there's very little real cohesion in the dog training community. I mean, these trainers will throw each other under the bus in a heartbeat. You see it all the time. Because like I said, what's real friendship based on? It's based on the truth. So these trainers are in it for themselves. They've embraced this idea that's problematic. And so when these problems all start happening, or when a controversy happens, they want to exploit it. You see some of these trainers doing that all the time. It's like picking the low-hanging fruit to try to make themselves try to take advantage or exploit the situation to try to elevate themselves. It's just a sad state of the dog training community. What should be happening is actually taking the time to source out what the real problem is, but that's not happening. So I'll stop part 2 here. I'll do a couple more parts here as we go through it. But again, this is David not holding back. Okay, he's calling it the way it is, and it's like I say, you usually don't see this type of thing. So again, I want to fill in some extra gaps and holes here as we go through, but some of the stuff I'm hearing here is new to me. There's so much going on. It's just like there's stuff happening so much that you're touching on things, but it's like there's so much infighting and divisiveness and just the back and forth. And meanwhile, the dog training world is coming apart at the seams. Thanks for watching.